rocket goes off, and this.
Small arms fire started coming from this direction. Roan had a machine gun, and he stood in probably like a 3/4 cross position and just started laying hate down through this avenue of approach from here. I started to engage with him. I ran out of ammo, knelt down, changed magazines, and right as I'm coming up and I start to re-engage, another mortar hits almost to the center of the building here. And that one, it knocked me back, and that's what hit Roan. Roan was standing to my left. I got knocked back, and as I stood back up, I saw him out of the corner of my eye, and he was in a fetal position in the corner right here. I stand up and try to re-engage with my rifle, and I bring my hand up, and from here down is hanging off at a 90-degree angle.
Your hand is just hanging, flung.
Yeah. I just keep trying to bring it up, and it won't stay. I can't make it work. And that's when the second round hit. That's when I saw Bub go down about right here. I wasn't sure if he was hit or if he was just taking cover. And then I turned back and again tried to engage and get my hand to come up, and a third round hits in the same vicinity. And at that point, I mean, I just felt like I got hit by stung by 1,000 bees just up and down my side, and I figure I better get to some cover now in case another one comes, and the whole night went quiet after that.
That's tough to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, just a little.
I bet.
Yeah. But, you know, it's what has to be done. I mean, you're in a fight, you got to stay in a fight. That's the only thing I could think of is Roan's down. Somebody needs to continue firing.
And you see this mortar attack happen. What are you doing?
I'm over here on Tower 3, still, covering this area. To me, it looked like it hit like right around here. We had no cover for mortar attacks. I mean, even in the buildings, I'm surprised that one didn't collapse. Another explosion hits right here. When I heard another thump, that's when I jumped off the tower, moved back, and got somewhere right around here, and that's when the mortar hit. And once that mortar hit, it was pitch black and dead quiet. Jack came over and said, "Hey man, there's no movement," and that's when I sprinted to the ladder, and then I just kind of skiddied on up as fast as I could, jumped over the parapet, and that's when I saw Dave Ubin off to my left. Looked like somebody in the center, and then a couple other people maybe over here. But it was a lot of, the smoke was still up there from just the debris kind of settling down. And so I moved over to Dave. I find a tourniquet because Dave's leg was pretty much completely severed off. I think it was just barely hanging on by a thread, and same with his arm.
Some ligaments, yeah.
So got the tourniquets on him, called back on the radio, say, "Hey, I need help up here. I need help." I heard noise, so I moved over to where the noise was, and
I was trying to get a tourniquet out and put on myself, and then I saw him.
Meanwhile, your hand is still flopped down.
Yeah, so I pulled out the tourniquet, and I was just trying to fix my arm. I just kept grabbing it, trying to put it back in place. And
he's just sitting there kind of going, "Hey, check this out," and his arm is, it's just, I'm like, dude, you need to stop. You got to make it worse.
Stop playing with it.
So I
was bored.
He had his tourniquet there, reached down, grabbed his tourniquet, threw it on him real quick, stood him up.
He asked me if I could get down or get over to the ladder, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have to, because I knew there was others that were down.
Meanwhile, you're pretty banged up.
Yeah, just a little bit. I got hit in the chest, up and down my side, got hit in the throat, and I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll have to. And so I hooked my top arm around the top rung of the ladder and just climbed over and was concentrating on just thinking, if I fall now, I'm going to break my neck and die, and that's the last thing I want to do. So I'm just concentrating on getting my feet on that rung, and sure enough, I slipped, and luckily I had my arm, and I caught myself and pulled myself back up and got down, and then was able to inch my way down the ladder. After I got Oz up and moving, I went straight back to
Roan. He was still in the fetal position. I rolled him over. There was no response. I ripped off his body armor and tried to, got that off. Took a pulse. Couldn't feel nothing. Got the flashlight shining in his eyes. No pupil movements. No dilation. Put my ear to his chest and tried to see if his chest was going up and down, if I could hear a heartbeat. There was nothing. So I left him, went over to the other guy. So I did pretty much the same exact thing. Checked him, ripped off his body armor, and there was nothing.
When you realize they're dead, what do you do?
Overreach, both of them.
And the quote is, God watch over him, guide him to where he needs to be, take care of his family.
So after that, I kind of, the D-boys the whole time, they just want to get everybody off the roof. And when I was doing the prayer, I just ignored them, It was like, gathered up everybody's weapons that was left.
You got to get the bodies off the roof. It's tough.
The D-boys picked the bodies up and dumped them over the side of the roof. Maybe that's not the right description, but they got them off the roof the most expedient manner, and by doing that, it was just throwing them over the edge of the roof to get them down. I just leave that to each person's decision on, whether right, wrong, indifferent, but I know that it's not something you want to see.
Turned on the news, and there it was. 4 Americans had been dead and 2 were unidentified. And I'm like, he hasn't called me. I tried texting him. I tried calling him. Began to cry, and I just hit my knees and prayed.
In past experience, if I start panicking right away, then I just get myself worked up. So I just tried to not worry about it, and I thought, well, I'll hear from him in the morning or the next evening.
There was a ticker on the bottom of whatever news channel it was, and it said something to the effect that there was an attack on the annex in Benghazi. And my heart dropped, and I'm like, gosh, how am I going to tell the kids? And that was my first reaction.
Let me take you to when the bigger convoy arrives.
Yeah.
They finally get there. It's like 50 cars.
Yeah.
There's technicals, which are the big mounted machine guns.
It was a mean convoy. Remember the first vehicle coming in? I had my gun on him. I had eyes on. Right at his head. And I just reached my hand off with my offhand, and I went like this, and he reached out the car and did a big smile. And one thing that we've learned on these jobs is you have to know how to read people.
Is there a part of you guys that looked at that convoy and said, well, where was that?
Yeah.
Where was that before?
Yes, I did. I'm like, where the hell were these guys? Where were they?
Hours ago.
Exactly.
You get everybody mounted up. You're driving to the airport in this massive convoy, but still probably worried about attacks on the way.
Sure.
You get there, and there's another confrontation.
Between the militias, our militia, and then whoever militia was controlling the airport, and we were the bigger militia, so we got through.
You have a smaller airplane. It's not exactly big for everybody. Load you guys up, or you walk on.
They started to pull me off, and I'm like, I walked into Benghazi. I'm going to walk out of here, and I get up, slide to the edge, and stand up. There's still blood dripping down my arm, and because it was a private jet, there was a flight attendant, and her eyes just get as big as saucer plates, and she's laying towels down.
Yeah.
because she's worried about her boss's airplane getting messed up. And then they bring in Dave, and he was in and out of consciousness throughout the flight. And somewhere in between that, somebody's clearing their gun, their pistol.
When the local,
In the plane.
Yeah.
In the plane, and a round goes off. And the pilot he wasn't gonna take off till they could confirm that whether or not the fuselage had been breached.
But they figured it out.
It had lodged against one of the seat posts and didn't penetrate anything.
Dave Ubben, he was bleeding out. If there was another delay,
He probably wouldn't have made it because he was down to about as much blood as a person could lose before they die.
you're taking off in the plane. The rest of you guys
Yeah.
are going to wait for the next plane.
Yes.
With the bodies and
Yes.
then eventually the body of Ambassador Stevens.
Yes.
I didn't answer it on the first ring. It rang a couple times because I wasn't sure who it was going to be. If it was going to be him or if it was going to be some, representative informing me of what had happened. I took a deep breath and I listened and I just said, okay, and I love you. And I probably didn't sleep much that night.
It was really brief. He just said, I'm okay, everything is okay, and click, he hung up. So it was super quick.
Finally, it was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. A nurse from Lunstall had called and said that he had arrived there, and so I was just like I could breathe. And just thank God.
Would you do it all over again?
Yes,
Definitely. I'd be there.
it's just the way we are.
We run to it. We're not running away from it.
How often do you get back to this 13 hours? Do you think about it a lot?
Every day you think about it. There ain't a day that you don't.
I'm reminded of it every time I go to grab something.
How's your hand?
Yeah, because I still don't have full use of it. Probably never will have full use of it. So it is a reminder, but it reminds me of the honor of fighting with guys like Tig and Tonto and Roan and Bub and Jack and DB. Very few times in your life will you get to form a bond like this, and most of the time it's done in situations that suck. But I wouldn't give it up.
When you see all of the back and forth that has happened over the past roughly 2 years, what do you think about all the political battle and that sort of
You
thing?
can't get it wrapped up in, because we're not politicians. We're contractors, we're soldiers, we were Marines, Rangers. We still are. We'll always be. So leave that to the politicians. I can't speak for why a politician did this or why a politician did that. All I can speak for is what we went through that night and what happened.
If I gave you that 30 minutes back and I gave you some air power, would Ambassador Stevens and Sean Smith be alive today?
Yes, to me, if without the delay, they would still be alive. My gut is yes.
You in on that?
I'd strongly believe if we'd have left immediately, they'd still be alive today.
I think there's a lot of things could have been different. Air power, if we had some air support, if they'd have sent somebody in.
The Spectre, in my opinion, can see heat signatures, and
They would have been able to see the mortar.
they would be able to see the mortar team setting up.
Which means that Roan and Bub would be alive.
Would it have improved our chances? Oh, heck yeah. I said to myself, as soon as my baby girl says she doesn't want me doing this anymore, I'm going to stop doing it. And she did on my last trip to Yemen. She goes, Daddy, I don't want you to go fight bad guys anymore.